38-year-old Lynn Amos worked as a financial consultant for a management consulting firm and moved to Washington, D.C. in August 1995. As part of her job, she made frequent trips to Mexico to assess the lending practices of large Mexican banks. In the early morning hours of December 11, 1995, fire trucks were called to a fire at a townhouse in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C. The firefighters found the fire restricted to the upstairs bedroom of the townhome, specifically the bed itself. After the blaze was extinguished, the firefighters on scene were stunned to see a woman on the bed, barely clinging to life. It was Lynn Amos. She was rushed to the emergency room of a local hospital with third-degree burns over 80% of her body. When she arrived at the hospital, Lynn was asked by a nurse if she knew what happened to her, but she shook her head no. She then slipped into a coma and passed away 10 days later on December 21st, 1995. The autopsy performed showed that Lynn's blood alcohol level was 0.25%, more than twice the legal limit in Washington, D.C. A cigarette was also found near her bed, suggesting to investigators that she may have accidentally set herself on fire while intoxicated in bed. This theory made sense initially, but her friends and family did not believe it. They refused to believe she was a smoker, and pointed to the fact there were no cigarettes, matches, or ashtrays anywhere in her home. When insurance investigators accessed Lynn's home, they discovered more evidence than the police did. They found the presence of accelerants on the mattress, floor, and pillows, and concluded that the fire had been set on purpose. The accelerant was a mixture of kerosene, gasoline, and turpentine, which also contributed to Lynn's burns on her body. One of the doctors that was attending to Lynn stated that her burns were not consistent with an accidental fire. 1 month after Lynn's death, the cause of death was officially listed as a homicide. According to Lynn's mother, Helen Amos, the insurance investigators' report showed that there was a combination of kerosene, gasoline, and turpentine. And the doctor told me that her burns were consistent with those from a fire that was accelerated. He told me at the hospital. He couldn't believe that only she and the bed had burned. He said she looked like the result of a house having burned around her. The police were now investigating a murder. Lynn Amos was last heard from at 10 p.m. the night she died, when she called into her office to let them know she would be late for work the next day. Police believe that Lynn went to bed shortly after this call, and then sometime after midnight, her killer broke into her home. There were no signs of forced entry, so it is believed that he may have had a key. It's speculated that this person forced her to drink alcohol until she became unconscious, then spread the accelerant on her bed and body, and set it on fire. So, now we have answers to how she was murdered, when she was murdered, and where she was murdered. But why was Lynn murdered? At first, investigators could not answer that question. However, they soon learned more information from her friends and family. Police and Lynn's family believe that she was murdered because of her investigation into the Mexican banks. 1 month prior to the fire, she had lunch with her friend Emily Smith. While there, she told Emily that she was working on investigating the, quote, Mexican equivalent of the Federal Reserve. She said that she was in charge of examining credit issues and had discovered some very bad lending practices. Lynn Amos never completed her report on the Mexican banks. Her former employer wrote, "We are troubled by the same questions being asked by investigators. We can only hope that forensic science will provide some answers." To this day, the case remains unsolved. The Vatican Secret Archive, also known as the Vatican Apostolic Archive, is said to contain state papers, correspondence, account books, and many other documents that the Church has accumulated over the centuries. In the 17th century, under the orders of Pope Paul V, the Secret Archive was separated from the Vatican Library and remained closed to outsiders until the late 19th century when Pope Leo VIII opened the archive to researchers. With limited exceptions, the only individuals granted access to the archive are qualified scholars from institutions of higher education, select scholars that need a letter from either a recognized institute of research or a suitably qualified person in their field of historical research. Applicants need to provide their personal information as well as their purpose of research. Only 60 academicians per day are allowed inside. The Vatican Secret Archive has been estimated to contain 53 miles or 85 kilometers of shelving and contains some amazing pieces of history. Some notable documents include Henry VIII of England's request for a marriage annulment, a handwritten transcript of the trial of Galileo for heresy, and letters from Michelangelo complaining he had not been paid for work on the Sistine Chapel. With as long a history as the Catholic Church, there is also said to be some dark secrets hiding within the walls of the archive. These items are said to be proof that Jesus did not exist, evidence of extraterrestrials, a time machine, and many others. The Great Sphinx of Giza is a limestone statue of a reclining sphinx, a mythical creature with the head of a human and the body of a lion. Facing directly from west to east, it stands on the Giza Plateau on the west bank of the Nile in Giza, Egypt. The face of the Sphinx appears to represent the pharaoh Khafre. The Sphinx is the oldest known monumental sculpture in Egypt and one of the most recognizable statues in the entire world. The archaeological evidence suggests that it was created by ancient Egyptians of the Old Kingdom during the reign of Khafre, around 2558 to 2532 BC. There are various legends of secret passages associated with the Great Sphinx. Investigations by Florida State University, Waseda University in Japan, and Boston University have located various anomalies in the area around the monument, although these could be natural features. Between 1991 and 1993, while examining evidence for erosion at the monument using a seismograph, archaeologist Anthony West and his team found evidence of anomalies in the form of hollow, regularly shaped spaces or chambers a few meters below the ground between the pawls at either side of the Sphinx. In 1995, workers renovating a nearby parking lot uncovered a series of tunnels and pathways, two of which plunged further underground close to the Sphinx. It is rumored that these hollow passages lead to a hall of records. Proponents believe that an ancient Atlantean civilization stored their documents under the Sphinx. No further examination has been allowed. In March 1974, a work brigade of farmers drilling a well discovered a subterranean chamber that archaeologists later found contained an army of some 8,000 life-size terracotta soldiers and horses, along with richly adorned chariots of wood and bronze, iron farm implements, bronze and leather bracelets, bronze and leather bridles, objects of silk, linen, jade, and bone, and such items as bows and arrows, spears and swords, cast from an unusual 13-element alloy, which are still shiny and sharp today. The clay figures, once brightly painted with mineral colors, were grouped into a specific military configuration of vanguard bowmen and crossbowmen, outer files of archers, groups of infantrymen and charioteers, and an armored rear guard that followed the military prescriptions of the time. 3 nearby chambers, one holding more than 1,300 ceramic figures representing a smaller, complementary force of foot soldiers, chariots, and cavalry, one with 68 members of what probably represents an elite command unit, and one that is empty, were all discovered in the 1970s. Buried above and around many of the broken figures are the remnants of timber roofing, which may have collapsed because of a previous fire. The buried army faces east, poised for battle, about 3/4 of a mile from the outer wall of the tomb. In pits nearby, they have found the remains of 7 humans, possibly the emperor's children, a subterranean stable filled with horse skeletons, an assemblage of half-sized bronze chariots, 70 individual burial sites, a zoo for exotic animals, and other artifacts. The tomb itself remains unexcavated. It lies within an inner wall and beneath a 4-sided pyramid mound that was originally landscaped to appear as a low wooded mountain. The interior is reputedly a vast underground palace that took about 700,000 conscripted workmen more than 36 years to complete. The compound was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987. Archaeological excavations on the site continue to this day and will well into the 21st century. The shrine is one of the most revered abodes of Hindu deity Mahavishnu. The Hindu temple has valuables that are believed to have been accumulated in the temple over thousands of years, having been donated to the deity and subsequently stored in the temple by various dynasties. In 2011, a retired officer filed a petition in the Supreme Court for taking stock of the temple's unknown treasury. The Supreme Court appointed a 7-member association to look into the unaccounted wealth of the temple and make an official record of it. When the committee began its work, 6 huge vaults were discovered in the temple, which were named A, B, C, D, E, and F. The doors were iron-made, and the scope to open them was dim. It took hard work to open the secret vaults, and what they revealed was beyond human imagination. Bags full of ancient gold coins, diamonds, gemstones, very heavy and huge gold and diamond necklaces. However, when it came to open Vault B, it remained locked, despite all efforts made by the committee to open it. Of all the 6 vaults, Chamber B is believed to be deeply rooted to god Padmanabhaswamy. The ruling party, the temple priests, and Vedic scholars believe that any effort to unlock the vaults will bring misfortune. The said belief strengthened with the untimely death of Sudarajan, the petitioner, a month after the doors were opened. Ages ago, the sages of high stature had locked the doors with portals with Nagapasam mantras during the reign of King Marthanda Varma. Only a sage or saint of high caliber is capable of removing the Nagapasam by chanting Garuda mantra in a proper way. There are 2 antechambers apart from the main door guarding the entry to Chamber B. The main door is the 3rd and final door, which is guarded by humongous serpents, the deities, enchanting and fiery female vampire named Kandrutu Yakshi, and other supernatural entities. Around 100 years ago, when the area was grappling with serious famine, the temple authorities tried to open the chamber to use the treasure kept locked behind the doors. But when they heard the sound of gushing ocean waves from behind the door, they stepped back and gave up on the idea. Since then, it is believed that the chamber is somehow connected to the Arabian Sea, and any attempt made by the modern technology to open the door will unleash catastrophes across the state. The Taj Mahal is one of the most popular tourist attractions in India. In 1631, Shah Jahan, which was to be a monument to his late wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who had died giving birth to their 14th child. The temple, which took 22 years and 32 million rupees to complete, was truly a work of love. Although this breathtaking building attracts up to 8 million visitors per year, there are places in the temple that tourists never see. Below the areas where tourists often visit, there is an entire story with entrances sealed behind marble arches. It is believed that there are 1,089 rooms in this hidden level. There is another floor hiding approximately 22 rooms, hidden behind Hindu paintwork. Even on the open first floor, there are numerous mysterious locked doors that no one is able to unseal. What is hidden in these sealed areas? Well, there are several theories. The prevailing belief is that these areas were built hastily and do not boast the same grandeur as the rest of the monument, so Shah Jahan wanted to keep anyone from seeing them. However, not everyone believes this is the true secret of the mysterious locked doors. According to one theory, the sealed areas of the Taj Mahal are actually hiding the woman the monument immortalizes, Mumtaz Mahal. This theory purports that Shah Jahan secretly had his favorite wife mummified so that he could keep her close to him, even in death. This would have been a serious violation of the Islamic commandments, and he would have been declared a heretic had the transgression been discovered. Some also believe that Mumtaz Mahal's remains in the hidden rooms is more than just a body, that her spirit also haunts the rooms as well. Although the Shah built this epic monument in her honor, not everyone believes that this adored spouse was as happy in life as history would have us believe. Her husband, after all, had a harem numbering in the thousands, and he and his armies were known for their sexual violence. Olivier Levasseur was born in France during the 9 Years' War, around the year 1688, to a wealthy family. Olivier grew up receiving the best education that money could buy at the time, and eventually became an architect. In 1701, during the War of Spanish Succession, which lasted until 1714, Olivier became a privateer for the French crown. He procured a letter of marque from King Louis XIV. A letter of marque was a government license that authorized a private person, known as a privateer or corsair, to attack and capture vessels of a nation at war with the issuer. A letter of marque and reprisal would include permission to cross an international border to conduct any action against an attack and was authorized by an issuing jurisdiction to conduct those operations outside its borders, basically giving these people free rein to do whatever they wanted. When the war ended in 1714, Olivier was ordered to return home with his ship, but instead he chose to join Benjamin Hornigold and his pirate company. During the war, Olivier proved himself as a solid leader and a good shipmate, which made him a desirable captain on the high seas. Levasseur and Hornigold would go on to have a successful year of looting, but they would split shortly thereafter. Then Levasseur decided to head to the Brazilian coast. At this time, Levasseur was the leader of a stolen 22-gun merchant frigate named La Louise, and with the ship's power, he would attack as many boats and ships that came his way. One notable attack happened when the ship came upon a slave ship on its way to the south of Brazil. Olivier attacked, leading to it being robbed and damaged, and then Levasseur left the ship to sink with its crew still on board and left the remaining 240 slaves from the ship on an island near Rio de Janeiro. In 1718, Levasseur was told of riches on a French merchant ship in the Bay of Paranaguá. Levasseur found the ship and gave chase, but it was caught in a storm off the coast of the Catiga Islands. Olivier's ship sank on March 9, 1718, and with it came the death of approximately 80 of his crew. Levasseur managed to escape on a small brigantine that escorted his ship, and from there went south, São Francisco de Sol, where he robbed a boat full of cavassa flour in order to feed his surviving crew. After regrouping, Levasseur and his pirates sailed further north and began to prey on ships once again. In 1719, he operated together with Hal Davis and Thomas Coughlin for a time, and in 1720 they attacked the slave port of Quedo, king of Whydah, reducing the local fortress to ruins. Later that year, he was shipwrecked in the Mozambique Channel and stranded on the island of Anjouan in the Comoros. He had a bad eye from the injury in the War of Succession and had become completely blind by now, so he started wearing an eye patch. From 1720 onwards, Levasseur launched his raids from a base on the island of Sainte Marie, just off the coast of Madagascar, together with pirates John Taylor, Jasper Cigar, and Edward England. They would plunder the Laccadives and sold the loot to Dutch traders for £75,000. Levasseur and Taylor eventually got tired of England's humanity and marooned him on the island of Mauritius. They then perpetrated one of piracy's greatest exploits, the capture of the Portuguese great galleon Our Lady of the Cape, which was loaded full of treasures belonging to the Bishop of Gog. The pirates were able to board the vessel without firing a single broadside because the ship had been damaged in a previous storm, and to avoid capsizing, the crew had dumped all 72 of its cannons overboard. The booty consisted of bars of gold and silver, dozens of boxes full of golden guineas, diamonds, pearls, silk, art, religious objects, including the fiery cross of Goa, made of pure gold and inlaid with diamonds, rubies, and emeralds. It was so heavy that it required 3 men to carry to Lavasseur's ship. In fact, the treasure was so huge that the pirates did not bother to rob the ship's passengers, which is something they normally would have done. When the loot was divided, each pirate received at least £50,000 worth of gold guineas, as well as 42 diamonds each. Segur died when they sailed to Madagascar to divide their take. Levasseur and Taylor would split the remaining gold and silver, other objects, with Levasseur taking the Golden Cross. In 1724, Levasseur sent a negotiator to the governor on the island of Bourbon, present-day Reunion Island, to discuss an amnesty that had been offered to all pirates in the Indian Ocean who had decided to give up their practice. However, the French government wanted a large part of the stolen loot back, so Levasseur decided to avoid the amnesty altogether and settle down in secret on the Seychelles archipelago. Eventually, he was captured near Fort Dauphin, Madagascar. He was then taken to Saint Denis Reunion and hanged for piracy at 5 p.m. on July 7, 1730. Legend tells that when he stood on the scaffold to be hanged, Levasseur wore a necklace containing a cryptogram of 17 lines and threw this into the crowd while exclaiming, "Find my treasure, the one who may understand it." The necklace has since been lost, but treasure hunters have since tried to decode the cryptogram, hoping its solution would lead to a treasure. In 1947, Englishman Reginald Cruz Wilkins studied the documents, but the cryptogram was much more difficult to solve than he first believed. Cruz Wilkins' early writing indicates that the code may be based on Masonic symbolism. He claimed to have discovered a connection with the zodiac, the clavicles of Solomon, and the 12 labors of Hercules. Various tasks representing the labors of Hercules had to be undertaken in strict order. The treasure chamber is somewhere underground and must be approached carefully to avoid being flooded. It is protected by the tides, which requires damming to hold them back, and is to be approached from the north. Until his death at Reunion, Cruz Wilkins sought and dug in the island of Mahi. In a cave, except for old guns, some coins, and pirate sarcophagi, he did not find anything. He died on May 3rd, 1977, before he broke the last piece of the code. His son John, a history teacher from the Seychelles, the treasure, concluding that after using state-of-the-art equipment, he needs to go back to the old method, getting into this guy's mind, claiming he has 10 down, 2 to go in his Herculean labors. Today, the cryptogram and the supposed treasure both remain unsolved.
On Saturday, November 19, 1988, Michaela Garecht and her friend, Katrina Rodriguez, left home at 10 a.m. and rode their scooters to the Rainbow Market, 2 blocks away, to purchase food and sodas. The girls left their scooters by the front door as they went inside the store. Upon leaving the store, the 2 girls started walking home, forgetting about the scooters. When they realized they had forgotten them, they turned back to where they left them. However, they saw that one scooter was missing. Garecht then spotted the scooter farther down in the market parking lot, where it had been placed near a parked car. When Garecht bent down to pick the scooter up by the handlebars, an unidentified white male came out of the parked car, picked her up with his right arm around her waist, and put her into his car as she screamed. Rodriguez recalled the scene. "I looked up when I heard a scream, and I saw a man putting her into his car. She was still screaming. I just stood and watched, frozen in shock." The only witness to the abduction, Rodriguez ran back into the store to get help. The abductor escaped with Garecht, while Rodriguez notified a female clerk who phoned police to report the kidnapping. Michaela Joy Garecht was just 9 years old at the time. Garecht was wearing a t-shirt with the word Metro on the front, rolled-up denim jeans, black Mary Jane shoes, and pearl-colored feather-shaped earrings. In the 911 transcript, the female store clerk who phoned police on behalf of Rodriguez described the man who allegedly abducted her as hippie-like in appearance. However, it was subsequently revealed that the clerk had offered an incorrect description of the man and had inadvertently mistaken him for someone else she had seen driving in the parking lot. The clerk described a man in his 30s with a mustache, driving a burgundy-colored car, a false description which was erroneously distributed in the media for nearly 2 days following Garecht's abduction. Journalist Dennis Oliver commented, "For 2 days, the Hayward Police Department allowed media to publish false descriptions of the suspect. The first opportunity and best opportunity to rescue this girl was immediately after it happened, and for 2 days they were looking for the wrong person. The dispatcher took information from the wrong person, and from there on out communication was just not handled correctly in the crucial first 24 to 48 hours. Rodriguez, the sole witness to the abduction, described Garecht's captor as a white male in his 20s. The most distinguishing characteristic was that he seemed to have severe acne or pockmarks on his face. He had shoulder-length, dirty blonde hair. He was around 6 feet in height and had a slender build. The witness described him as having fox-like, blue eyes, and wearing a white t-shirt. According to Garecht's friend, the abductor drove a large, older model, American-made sedan. It was possibly a 4-door vehicle and was either cream or tannish gold in color. The car may have had cement splatters on the sides and lights set into the rear bumper. The front bumper was battered, the vehicle appeared run down, it may have previously been in an accident. The car was last seen speeding south on Mission Boulevard toward nearby Union City, California, with Garecht inside. Sketches of Garecht's abductor were distributed along with missing person flyers throughout the San Francisco Bay Area within 24 hours of her disappearance, but search efforts proved fruitless. Garecht's kidnapping led to one of the most extensive police investigations by the Hayward Police Department, and they received 5,000 tips in the first year alone. In the days following Garecht's abduction, police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation searched hillsides, parks, and unpopulated areas in southern Alameda County by helicopter and airplane. Forensic inspection of Garecht's scooter yielded fingerprints from an unknown source, which law enforcement believed may have belonged to Garecht's abductor. The majority of the tips submitted occurred within the first month of Garecht's abduction, as it was reported by the San Francisco Examiner that approximately 4,000 tips had been received by late December 1988. In this December report, an officer from the Hayward Police Department commented, "The only way we are closer to finding out what happened is that we have eliminated so many leads in this case. But as far as knowing who did it, or why, or what happened to her, we're no closer." A reward fund of over $70,000 was posted at this time for anyone who could provide information of Garecht's whereabouts. At the time of the kidnapping, Garecht's photo was featured as a missing child on milk cartons and billboards nationally, and thousands of flyers and posters were spread throughout the community. Within a day of her disappearance, family and volunteers had distributed 42,000 missing person flyers. In December 1992, a false lead was produced in Garecht's case when a prison inmate in Indiana named Roger Haggard claimed to have buried Garecht's body in the Hunters Point area of San Francisco. Upon further inquiry, Haggard alternately claimed he buried Garecht in a gladiolus field in Union City. Haggard was flown to San Francisco to recover Garecht's body, but after 8 hours of inspecting the alleged field, he admitted he had invented the story, resulting in an additional 6.5 years being added to his pre-existing sentence. In 1994, the Daily Review reported that police had followed up on more than 15,000 leads. More than 3 decades later, the investigation at the Hayward Police Station continued. Chief Investigator Inspector Robert Lampkin declared, "We'll go anywhere, any corner of the earth to try to bring Michaela home." Garecht's kidnapping was a high-profile missing child case and received national media attention. Her case was the first missing child case to be featured on America's Most Wanted in 1988. After the 2009 release of J.C. Dugard, who had been kidnapped in Myers, California, and held captive by Philip and Nancy Garrido for nearly 2 decades, renewed interest was brought on Garecht's case, and Garrido was interviewed regarding Garecht's abduction. In 2012, Wesley Sherman Teen, a convicted serial killer who committed various murders with his accomplice, Loren Herzog, known collectively as the Speed Freak Killers, brought to the attention of law enforcement that the original sketches of Garecht's abductor bore striking similarities to Herzog, who had committed suicide while on parole from prison in January 2012. While bone fragments discovered in one of Herzog and Sherman Teen's disposal sites was thought to belong to Garecht, DNA profiling completed in late 2012 proved they were not hers. 32 years after the abduction of Michaela, David Emery Mish was charged with her abduction and murder. On December 21, 2020, the Hayward Police Department along with the FBI announced the arrest of David Mish for the kidnapping and murder after he was linked to the crimes via fingerprint left on Michaela's scooter at the abduction site. He was in prison since 1989 for murder and on trial for the murder of 2 women in 1986 by the Fremont Police Department. The anniversary of Garecht's kidnapping has been marked every year at the location where the kidnapping took place. Numerous ribbons, new and old, are tied to the tree next to where the kidnapper's car was parked.
Today we will discuss the eerie case revolving around a Canadian firefighter named Danny Filippidis. In 2018, Danny went on his annual ski trip with colleagues from Toronto Fire Services to Lake Placid in New York State. They spent the day skiing without incident, and at 2 p.m. they were getting ready to head back to the cabin. Realizing he had forgot his camera in his car, Danny told his friends he was going to ski down to his vehicle to grab it, and he would meet them back at the lodge. It would have only taken a few minutes, but he never would arrive, and after a few hours of waiting and calling his cell phone with no answer, his friends became increasingly worried. When he still hadn't returned to the ski lodge by 4 p.m., his friends began looking for him. A search was mounted, but it seemed as if he'd dropped off the face of the earth. A massive manhunt was underway to find Filippidis. The search included at least 6 government agencies, 2 ski patrols, and several local volunteers. More than 135 people spent a combined 7,000 hours on the rugged mountain in varying winter weather conditions. Helicopters and search dogs were also called in. Nearly a week later, Danny's wife claimed that she had gotten a call from him, but that his voice had seemed faint and incoherent before he hung up. She would call the number back and talk to him again, but he seemed confused and unsure of where he even was. Unknown to him, the 50-year-old Toronto firefighter was the subject of a massive manhunt on the other side of the country. This had been the first tip to come in, and police acted on it, finally managing to track him down. When they found him, he was all the way across the country in Sacramento, California, thousands of miles away from where he had last been seen. Oddly still dressed in his full skiing gear, and with a haircut and a new iPhone. Strangest of all is that he could not remember anything at all of how he had come to be there, or what had happened to him. After a thorough investigation, we do have some possible answers as to how Filippidis seemingly appeared thousands of miles away. It is suspected that he had perhaps suffered head trauma, putting him in a daze and giving him amnesia after likely falling near a children's ski slope. He has no recollection of a fall that knocked him out and likely caused a concussion, but recalls coming to at dusk feeling sore and disoriented. He made his way to what he mistakenly believed to be the main ski lodge, only to find it closed and deserted. Investigators later determined that Filippidis likely fell near a children's ski slope and worked his way to the hub of kids programming, an area that's sparsely populated and would have been closed at the time. Filippidis suspects he then flagged down a truck in the hopes of securing a ride off the mountain. State police have never been able to determine who the man was or where the truck was coming from. He recalls climbing into the warm cab of a truck still clad in his ski boots and winter clothing. He remembers being sick by the side of a road at what appeared to be a truck stop, and then learning he was driving through Utah. Memories of what happened from this point are fragmented at best, but 6 days later he turned up in California. Filippidis says he found himself wandering the city intent on contacting his wife, but unsure of how to do so. Armed with the credit card he'd pocketed back in Lake Placid to pay for his Lyft pass and some cash, Filippidis says he managed to buy an iPhone, adding several stores were reluctant to sell to someone without identification. Then, however, he says he couldn't immediately remember his wife's number. "I ended up on the internet. I think that's when I came to the realization that I was a missing person," he says. Sacramento County Sheriff spokesman Sean Hampton said deputies found Filippidis wandering around the rental car area of the airport. Deputies believe Filippidis spent the night near Richards Boulevard along the Interstate 5 corridor. It's unclear how Filippidis moved from Richards Boulevard to the Sacramento airport, which is about 13 miles away, but he was clearly in need of medical attention. 3 sets of tests and multiple visits to neurologists and neuropsychologists in Toronto confirmed that he suffered some sort of head injury, Filippidis told the Canadian press. Filippidis told the Canadian press he and his family are just happy he's back at work and not suffering from major consequences from his injury beyond gaps in his memory of his trip to California. There was a lot of despair and a lot of stress on them in the sense that it just didn't look reasonable that I would be found okay. But we can almost talk about anything now. Thank you for watching Fireside Unsolved. Please like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notifications of new episodes. Until next time, stay safe, you filthy bastards.
On the evening of January 5, 1992, a haunting mystery unfolded in Gilmer, Texas. Kelly Day Wilson, a 17-year-old girl, left her job at Northeast Texas Video alongside her manager, Joe Henry. The following day, when Wilson's mother contacted Henry, he realized something was amiss. In a 2018 interview with CBS 19, Henry recalled the moment, saying, "I didn't hear anything further about that until in the morning around 6 a.m. She had asked if she had said anything about going somewhere the night before. She was supposed to go to a friend's house, but I don't know anything about that." Concerned, the police were notified, and an intense investigation ensued. Wilson's vehicle was discovered the next day, still parked at her workplace with a flat tire. Strangely, her belongings were inside the car, but her keys were missing. Wilson was last seen wearing cut-off blue jeans, a purple rugby shirt adorned with red, gold, and white insignia, and brown loafers. She also wore an array of distinctive jewelry, including a gold dome ring, a gold emerald ring, a gold diamond inset Mexican eagle coin ring, a gold pinky ring, a gold chain bracelet, a gold watch, and triangle earrings. Notably, Wilson had blonde hair and wore a retainer on her lower teeth. Grainy surveillance footage from the bank captured someone making the video store's deposit that night, though it remains unclear whether it was Wilson herself. As the realization of Wilson's perplexing disappearance sunk in, the race to locate her intensified. Sergeant James Brown of the Gilmer Police Department spearheaded the investigation. However, in a bizarre twist 2 years later, Sergeant Brown and 7 others faced indictment on charges related to Wilson's disappearance and presumed murder, according to the Charlie Project. Allegations suggested that the crime was part of a satanic ritual performed by a group of cult members engaged in violent acts. Gilmer, Texas became a divided town as opinions on Sergeant Brown and his associates' guilt or innocence diverged. The case thrust unwanted national attention onto the small community, with media coverage often fixating on cults and contentious law enforcement practices. The murder charges against everyone were later dropped 2 months after the initial allegations had been made. One suspect, a teenager named Michael Bybee, was convicted of a misdemeanor for slashing Kelly's car tire. While Bybee admitted to the act, he denied any involvement in Wilson's disappearance. Another person of interest emerged, Wilson's then-boyfriend, Chris Denton. However, Denton was never charged and passed away from cancer in 2004. He consistently maintained his innocence. In 2018, the Gilmer Police Department announced a fresh examination of the case, employing modern forensic technology to reevaluate all evidence. They also indicated pursuing new leads that had emerged in recent years. This brought a glimmer of hope for Wilson's family, who have never ceased their quest for answers. The vanishing of Kelly Day Wilson left an indelible mark on Gilmer, Texas. It served as a stark reminder that violence and evil could exist within one's own community. It cautioned against hasty judgments and the dangers of jumping to conclusions. For journalist Philip Williams, the case remains an intricate and enigmatic enigma. "It's like a Russian novel," he remarked. "It has everything in it: love, sex, religion, politics, the dark side of human nature. It's a case that has never gone away, and I don't think it ever will." Despite the myriad leads and suspects that have surfaced over the years, the truth behind Kelly Day Wilson's disappearance remains elusive. Over 3 decades have passed since that fateful January night in 1992, yet her family and the community of Gilmer, Texas, cling to the hope that one day the answers they seek will be revealed. While the fate of Kelly Day Wilson may forever remain unknown, we can honor her memory by refusing to forget her and by persistently pursuing the truth. As the investigation continues, we can only hope that someday the veil of mystery will be lifted, providing the closure that her family so desperately deserves. Anyone with information regarding Wilson's disappearance is urged to contact the Gilmer Police Department at 903-843-5545 or the Texas Department of Public Safety, Missing Persons Clearinghouse at 800-346-3243. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards. On a warm summer evening on August 3, 2017, Lucien Perrault and Olivier Boudin sat down for their usual evening meal, unaware that this seemingly ordinary dinner would set the stage for a haunting tale. In the peaceful village of Auton-du-Perche, the 69-year-old retiree Lucien and his 38-year-old friend Olivier shared a unique relationship akin to that of a father and son. Their evening began under the open sky, as they gathered around a red and white checkered cloth adorned with a modest feast of rib steak, tinned beans, camembert cheese, and a freshly baked baguette. The atmosphere was filled with music, merriment, and abundant red wine. The following morning, a concerned neighbor noticed the men in peculiar positions, assuming they had merely succumbed to the effects of their spirited indulgence. However, as the day wore on and the motionless figures remained unchanged, she sensed something was terribly amiss. She was determined to make sure she kept an eye on the men, and with each passing hour the neighbor's concern deepened. As she walked past the garden, she noticed Lucien was still seated at the table. At midday she called out to them, fearing they would get sunstroke, but got no answer. Another neighbor poured cold water on Olivier, and still he didn't stir. Realizing the unimaginable, she discovered that Lucien and Olivier had passed away. Olivier lay face up, motionless on the ground, while Lucien remained slumped in his chair, their meals left half-eaten. There were no visible wounds or signs of struggle, perplexing investigators who grappled with the puzzle of their simultaneous demise. Rumors swirled through the village, attempting to explain the inexplicable deaths of these beloved friends. Suspicion initially fell on the canned beans, suggesting a sinister plot to poison them. However, meticulous analysis conducted at the renowned Pasteur Institute in Paris refuted any evidence of foul play. As authorities delved deeper, the possibility of joint suicide was considered. Yet those who knew Lucien well vehemently dismissed this notion, attesting to his positive spirits that day. With each theory disproven, investigators turned to the final piece of the puzzle, the autopsies. The autopsies would uncover a tragic sequence of events that no one could have guessed. Lucien, plagued by missing teeth, had inadvertently choked on a piece of his beefsteak, unable to properly chew it. As his life slipped away, Olivier, burdened with cardiomegaly, an enlarged heart, experienced a fatal heart attack upon witnessing his dear friend's tragic demise. No foul play, no suicide. Just an unimaginably unfortunate chain of circumstances that forever altered the lives of these two companions. The shocking truth left the village in a state of profound sorrow and reflection. The owner of the Au Bon Coin bistro lamented the men's stupid deaths. If only Lucien had taken his time to eat the steak, he sighed. He could have eaten many more. The story of Lucien Perrault and Olivier Boudin serves as a chilling reminder of the fragile nature of our existence. In a world where ordinary moments can unexpectedly transform into heart-wrenching tragedies, we are reminded of the value of each passing moment. The tragic dinner in Auton-du-Perche remains etched in memory, forever entwined with the enduring lesson of cherishing life's simple joys. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards. The tragic story of Miss Idylia unfolds in the book titled The Diary of Miss Idylia, A Tragic Tale of Young Love Lost. This gripping narrative presents itself as the original diary of a young girl who mysteriously vanished while vacationing with her parents in the German Rhineland in 1851. Originally published under the title The Missing Girl, The Records of Idylia Dub by Bertelsmann in Munich in 2002, this diary gained further attention when it was later translated into Dutch in 2009, and finally published in English by Short Books in 2010. The diary chronicles the unfortunate fate of Idylia Dub, a 17-year-old Scottish girl who went missing during a family trip to Germany in 1851. Despite extensive search efforts, her parents were unable to locate her and eventually returned home. In a chilling twist, nearly a decade later in 1860, workers at Lanark Castle stumbled upon her remains at the top of a tower. By her skeletal remains, a diary was discovered, in which she had documented the harrowing experiences of her final days. Trapped at the tower's summit after a wooden staircase collapsed, Idylia endured unimaginable horrors without access to sustenance or water. Controversy surrounds the authenticity of the diary. Short Books, the English publishers, released it as a work of nonfiction, but acknowledged that its complete authenticity could never be fully verified. In a review of the English edition published in The Spectator, Andrew Taylor voiced skepticism, stating that even the most trusting reader would detect several significant discrepancies. He pointed out the presence of foreshadowing devices, anachronistic language, and the overall action-packed narrative, which raised doubts about the diary's veracity. German historians have also raised concerns about the book's historical accuracy. They note numerous inaccuracies, such as the description of a nearby church with 2 towers, despite one of them having already collapsed in 1844. Additionally, Dub mentions hearing the sound of a train, although the railroad through the Rhine Valley was not constructed until 1859. The Hands Resist Him is a renowned painting created by artist Bill Stoneham in 1972. It portrays a young boy and a female doll standing in front of a door with glass panels, which is surrounded by numerous pressed hands. Stoneham revealed that the boy in the painting is based on a photograph of himself at the age of 5. The door symbolizes the boundary between the real world and the realm of imagination and impossibility, while the doll represents a guide who will accompany the boy on his journey through it. The haunting image of hands represents alternative lives or possibilities. The painting gained notoriety when it became the subject of an urban legend and an internet meme in February 2000, after being listed for sale on eBay with a description implying that it was haunted. Originally showcased at the Feingarten Gallery in Beverly Hills, California during the early 1970s, it was part of a solo exhibition by Stoneham that received a review from the art critic of the Los Angeles Times. Actor John Marley, known for his role as Jack Woltz in The Godfather, purchased the painting during the exhibition. Following Marley's death, the painting was discovered at the site of an old brewery by an elderly couple in California, as stated in their eBay listing. The couple claimed that the painting carried a curse and made several assertions about its alleged haunting, including claims of the characters moving at night and even leaving the painting to enter the room where it was displayed. The eBay listing included photographs that supposedly captured an incident where the female doll threatened the male character with a gun, causing him to try to escape the painting. The sellers included a disclaimer absolving themselves of any liability if the painting was purchased. News of the listing quickly spread across the internet as users shared the link with friends and created their own pages about it. Some individuals reported feeling unwell or experiencing unpleasant sensations simply from viewing the photos of the painting. The auction page received over 30,000 views. The painting received 30 bids and was eventually sold for $1,025. The buyer, Perception Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan, contacted Bill Stoneham and shared the peculiar story of the eBay auction and their acquisition of the artwork. Stoneham expressed surprise at the various stories and strange interpretations of the painting's imagery. According to the artist, The object presumed to be a gun by the eBay sellers is actually just a dry cell battery and a tangle of wires. Stoneham also noted that both the owner of the gallery where the painting was first exhibited and the art critic who reviewed it passed away within a year of their encounters with the artwork. Robert Cletus Driscoll graced the screens of both film and television from 1943 to 1960. He achieved fame through his roles in several iconic films produced by Walt Disney Studios, including Song of the South, So Dear to My Heart, Treasure Island, and RKO's The Window. However, his most notable contribution was serving as the animation model and voice for Peter Pan in Disney's 1953 production. According to Mark Elliott's biography on Walt Disney, he affectionately regarded Driscoll as the embodiment of his own youth, favoring him as his favorite child star in live-action roles. Nevertheless, during a project meeting after the completion of Peter Pan, Disney expressed a change in his perception of Driscoll. In March 1953, just weeks after the theatrical release of Peter Pan, the 2-year extension of Driscoll's contract with Disney, which would have kept him connected to the studio until 1956, was abruptly canceled. Subsequently, Driscoll encountered a growing indifference from other Hollywood studios, struggling to secure movie roles as a serious character actor. In December 1956, Driscoll and his longtime girlfriend, Marilyn Jean Rush, eloped to Mexico. They later had 2 daughters and a son, but unfortunately their relationship did not endure, and they divorced in 1960. During the period, Driscoll's drug use escalated. He faced his first arrest in 1956 for marijuana possession. A Los Angeles Times article by Hedda Hopper on July 24, 1956, stated that this incident could jeopardize his career. Driscoll admitted years later that he began experimenting with drugs at the age of 17 and quickly spiraled into using whatever substances were available, predominantly heroin due to his financial means. During this tumultuous time, Driscoll faced additional charges, including disturbing the peace and assault with a deadly weapon. The latter incident occurred when he struck one of 2 hecklers with a pistol who had insulted him while he was washing his girlfriend's car. In late 1961, Driscoll was sentenced as a drug addict and served time at the Narcotic Rehabilitation Center of the California Institution for Men in Chino, California. After his release in early 1962, he struggled to find acting opportunities and became embittered by the lack of work. Driscoll expressed his disillusionment, stating that being discarded after being treated like a prized possession was a bitter experience. In 1965, a year after his parole ended, Driscoll relocated to New York with hopes of revitalizing his career on Broadway, but his efforts proved unsuccessful. Instead, he became part of Andy Warhol's Greenwich Village art community, known as The Factory, where he focused on his artistic talents. Tragically, on March 30, 1968, 2 boys playing in a deserted East Village tenement discovered Driscoll's lifeless body lying on a cot. 2 empty beer bottles and religious pamphlets were scattered nearby. An autopsy examination revealed that he had died from heart failure caused by advanced atherosclerosis, resulting from his drug use. The body lacked identification, and efforts to identify him within the neighborhood were unsuccessful. Consequently, his unclaimed body was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave on Hart Island in New York City's Potter's Field. In late 1969, Driscoll's mother sought assistance from officials at Disney Studios in hopes of reuniting her son with his father, who was approaching death. This endeavor led to a fingerprint match at the New York City Police Department, which located Driscoll's burial site on Hart Island. Although his name appears on his father's gravestone at Eternal Hills Memorial Park in Oceanside, California, Driscoll's remains remain on Hart Island. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards. At the age of 19, Tim Molnar was a diligent student pursuing aeronautical mechanics at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. However, on January 24, 1984, his life took an unexpected turn. Departing from home to attend his classes, he mysteriously vanished and never returned. The last person to see him was his younger brother Frank, whom he dropped off at school that morning. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance have left investigators and his family perplexed, leading to conflicting theories. Some believe that foul play may have been involved in Tim's disappearance, while others, including his family, hold on to the hope that he chose to run away to start a new life. The night after his vanishing, his family received an eerie phone call with nothing but static on the other end, possibly an attempt from Tim to reach out, but hesitated and hung up. The investigation took a surprising turn 2 weeks later when it was discovered that Tim had stopped at a gas station in Lake City, Florida, on the day he went missing, using his parents' credit card to pay for gas. The gas station attendant confirmed he was alone, adding to the mystery. 4 months later, a letter from an auto impound company in Atlanta, Georgia, revealed that Tim's car had been found in a parking lot just 1 block away from the Greyhound bus terminal, where he left it 6 days after vanishing. Inside the abandoned car, his family discovered his driver's license, wallet, credit card, and other personal items. However, some valuable items were missing, such as a stereo, an expensive tool set, and a bicycle. The absence of clothes, except those he was wearing, indicated that he might have changed his identity. Additionally, he had withdrawn almost all the money from his savings account before disappearing. The case remained unresolved for over a decade until it resurfaced on an episode of Unsolved Mysteries aired on November 17, 1995. A viewer named Stephen Cull came forward, recognizing the clothes found with the body of a person frozen in ice in a secluded woodlot in Neosho, Wisconsin. The discovery had been made 10 years prior. The medical examiner was alerted, and DNA testing confirmed that the body was indeed Tim's. Keys found with the body matched the locks of the Molnar home. Oddly, the cause of his death remained unknown, as there were no apparent signs of trauma, and the reasons for his presence in Wisconsin remain a mystery. Despite the resolution of his identity, the circumstances surrounding Tim's death continued to perplex everyone involved. His family organized a memorial service and laid him to rest in Daytona Beach, Florida, where he had disappeared years ago. However, the unanswered questions left by his vanishing remain to this day, forever shrouding his fate in uncertainty. Tragically, Tim's parents, Helen and Michael, have since passed away, adding to the sadness that lingers around this case. During my research for this video, I stumbled upon a fascinating Reddit post titled, "I have information on the disappearance of Tim Molnar," which had been posted approximately 10 months ago. In the post, a user claimed that their parents had encountered a peculiar family friend on their property. This individual, now in his 80s, used to show up uninvited to their family property, which happened to be located just down the street from where Tim Molnar was eventually found in Wisconsin. The Reddit user went on to explain that they had reported this crucial information to the FBI, hoping it could shed light on the case, but as of yet, no significant developments had resulted from their report. The mysterious connection between the family friend's presence near the location of Tim's discovery adds an intriguing twist to the already puzzling disappearance of Tim Molnar. Tim Molnar's story is one that reminds us of the enduring impact of unresolved mysteries and the enduring love of a family that sought answers for decades. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards. As the sun rose on April 14, 1561, over the German city of Nuremberg, the residents witnessed a spectacle they could hardly explain. What they described was an extraordinary aerial battle, seemingly taking place in the sun's glow. The event featured a captivating dance of orbs, crosses, cylinders, and an enigmatic black arrow-shaped object, followed by a remarkable crash landing somewhere beyond the city limits. The entire occurrence was so perplexing that a local artist named Hans Glaser felt compelled to document it in a broadsheet, complete with a woodcut engraving of the scene and a detailed account of the witnessed events. In the morning of April 14th, 1561, at daybreak between 4 and 5 a.m., a dreadful apparition occurred on the sun, and then this was seen in Nuremberg in the city, before the gates and in the country by many men and women. At first, there appeared in the middle of the sun 2 blood-red semicircular arcs, just like the moon in its last quarter. And in the sun, above and below and on both sides, the color was blood. There stood a round ball of partly dull, partly black ferrous color. Likewise, there stood on both sides, and as a torus about the sun, such blood-red ones and other balls in large number, about 3 in a line and 4 in a square, also some alone. In between these globes there were visible a few blood-red crosses, between which there were blood-red strips, becoming thicker to the rear and in the front, malleable like the rods of reed grass, which were intermingled, among them 2 big rods, one on the right, the other to the left, and within the small and big rods there were 3, also 4 and more globes. These all started to fight among themselves, so that the globes, which were first in the sun, flew out to the one standing on both sides. Thereafter, the globes standing outside the sun, in the small and large rods, flew into the sun. Besides, the globes flew back and forth among themselves and fought vehemently with each other for over an hour. And when the conflict in and again out of the sun was most intense, they became fatigued to such an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all burned, and they then wasted away on the earth with immense smoke. After all this, there was something like a black spear, very long and thick, sighted. The shaft pointed to the east, the point pointed west. Whatever such signs mean, God alone knows. Although we have seen shortly one after another many kinds of signs on the heaven, which are sent to us by the Almighty God, to bring us to repentance, we still are, unfortunately, so ungrateful that we despise such high signs and miracles of God. Or we speak of them with ridicule and discard them to the wind, in order that God may send us a frightening punishment on account of our ungratefulness. After all, the God-fearing will by no means discard these signs, but will take it to heart as a warning of their merciful Father in heaven, will mend their lives and faithfully beg God that he may avert his wrath, including the well-deserved punishment on us, so that we may temporarily here and perpetually there live as his children. For it, may God grant us his help. According to Glaser's broadsheet, the celestial drama unfolded between 4 and 5 a.m. that morning. It began with the appearance of 2 blood-red semicircular arcs in the middle of the sun, resembling the moon in its last quarter. Around the sun, numerous blood-red globes and other peculiar shapes materialized, arranged in various patterns. Among them were a few blood-red crosses, and some of the shapes resembled rods of reed grass. In the midst of this mysterious congregation, spheres and globes started to engage in what seemed like a fierce battle, flying back and forth and fighting each other for over an hour. As the conflict reached its peak, the combatants began to tire and eventually fell from the sun, descending upon the earth as if they were burning, leaving behind massive clouds of smoke. Curiously, a long and thick black spear was also sighted, pointing eastward at one end and westward at the other. The significance of these signs remained a mystery, with only God presumed to truly understand their meaning. Back then, the event was primarily interpreted religiously, but as time passed, some entertained the idea of it being an early sighting of extraterrestrial beings. Nonetheless, contemporary researchers have put forth more plausible explanations, considering the possibility of a natural meteorological phenomenon such as sundogs or parhelia. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards. In a haunting chronicle that still echoes in the minds of those who remember, The fateful evening of December 6, 2014, bore witness to a tragedy that would forever alter the course of a young life. The clock struck 8:10 p.m. as the world grew dark, and the landscape was illuminated only by the chilling sight of 19-year-old Jessica Chambers. She lay next to her car, both engulfed in a merciless blaze that seemed to mirror the darkness of the heartless act that had transpired. The extent of Jessica's suffering became all too apparent as the flames revealed the horrific truth. A flammable liquid had been mercilessly poured upon her body, a vile assault that reached even into the recesses of her nose and throat. The agony she endured was unimaginable, and the ensuing dawn brought with it the grim news of her passing, her body unable to withstand the brutal assault inflicted upon her. As the puzzle pieces of Jessica Chambers' harrowing ordeal were painstakingly assembled, a crucial thread of testimony emerged from the midst of her torment. Amidst the chaos of first responders and the searing flames that consumed her, a whispered name floated into the night air. Eric or Derek. Yet despite the spark of a lead, the path to justice remained elusive. A relentless hunt ensued, encompassing the countless individuals sharing those names, all of whom were interrogated and eventually cleared of suspicion. Not even Jessica's boyfriend, Travis Sanford, escaped scrutiny, only to be exonerated due to his alibi at the time. In the journey towards closure, the figure of Quentin Tellis emerged from the shadows, casting a darker hue upon the tragedy. With a rap sheet marred by convictions for burglary, drug possession, and evading law enforcement, Tellis became a focal point of the investigation. His narrative, however, seemed a fluid thing, shifting like sand beneath investigators' feet. At first, he professed a limited connection to Jessica, claiming to have parted ways before the evening's darkness set in, but evidence, both technological and testimonial, painted a more intricate picture. Cell phone records, the modern-day breadcrumbs of digital life, told a different story, a narrative of shared moments that stretched past the hour of reckoning. A journey that began in tandem with Jessica found Tellis's presence intertwined, defying his attempts to distance himself. Yet, as the grip of evidence tightened, so did the vice around his evolving tale. His chronicle twisted and turned like a desperate river, shifting its course in a futile effort to escape scrutiny. Surveillance footage, meticulous in its neutrality, contradicted Tellis's version of events. His alibis crumbled one by one like brittle walls of deception. From the store in Batesville to the driveway of his home, the cameras bore silent witness, revealing the truth that Tellis struggled to mask. Jessica's exit, captured in the unyielding gaze of technology, painted a portrait starkly different from his narrative. The minutes leading to the haunting discovery of her aflame figure belied the fiction he attempted to weave. The investigation, unyielding in its pursuit of the unvarnished truth, left Tellis with a dwindling arsenal of stories, each more fragile than the last. The alibis shattered, contradictions converged, and the weight of evidence bore down on him. Quentin Tellis, once a shadowy presence, was now an exposed figure, ensnared in the web of his own fabrications. As the investigation delved deeper into the intricate tapestry of events, the authorities' focus sharpened on the nexus between Quentin Tellis and Jessica Chambers. In a chilling revelation, the timeline of those crucial 30 minutes following her departure from Tellis's residence became a fulcrum upon which the case pivoted. The synchrony of evidence and circumstance painted a damning portrait, one that authorities believed made it exceedingly unlikely for another presence to have crossed Jessica's path in that fateful half-hour. DNA, a silent messenger of truth, emerged as a damning link between Tellis and the crime scene, his genetic imprint converging with the echoes of her final moments, imprinted on her car keys. Surveillance footage, an unblinking observer of the world's secrets, offered further glimpses into Tellis's enigmatic demeanor. His sister's vehicle, an instrument of his alleged deeds, was caught in its unflinching gaze, pausing briefly at his home before heading towards the site of Jessica's tragic fate. The cameras, diligent in their surveillance, captured the dance of Tellis's attire, a visual testament to his shifting identity on that fateful day. Yet perhaps the most unsettling revelation lay in the digital realm, a story of messages erased and connections severed. In the wake of Jessica's murder, Tellis's virtual communication with her vanished without a trace, a desperate attempt to erase the echoes of their interactions. A tale of desires rebuffed emerged from the void, as the deleted messages painted a stark narrative of repeated advances and steadfast rejections. As the courtroom doors swung open, two tales clashed, one of persistence and evidence, the other of doubt and deflection. A community's quest for closure and a family's longing for justice converged upon Quentin Tellis, a man at the center of a storm of accusations and uncertainty. In the hallowed halls of justice, the ultimate verdict awaited, a testament to the collision of truths, the power of evidence, and the enduring legacy of Jessica Chambers' tragically short life. Prosecutors painted a grim tableau of events, weaving a narrative of escalating fury and a deadly struggle for control. In Tellis's driveway, they proposed, the veil of civility shattered, giving way to a torrent of violence. Jessica's resistance became the catalyst for a chilling transformation, as the prosecution alleged Tellis subdued her, rendering her unconscious. A macabre sequence of actions followed, a grim choreography of distancing and destruction. From her car to his sister's, gasoline to fire, the elements of his alleged crime fell into place. The defense, however, held to a different thread of narrative, a shadow named Eric or Derek, that Jessica's voice had summoned from the abyss of her suffering. A sex offender named Derek Holmes emerged as their chosen specter, his presence claimed by residents' accounts. Yet a cascade of scrutiny quelled this theory, revealing alibis and contradictions that cast doubt upon his culpability. Medical expertise cast shadows upon Jessica's utterances, her injuries painting a bleak picture of speech rendered difficult. The path to justice for Jessica Chambers was a labyrinthine journey marked by twists, turns, and uncertainty. In October 2017, the courtroom's air grew thick with anticipation as the verdict was read. An initial verdict of not guilty sent shockwaves through the community, only to be swiftly eclipsed by a revelation of misunderstanding. The jury's confusion cast a pall over the proceedings, leading to an hour of introspection before a declaration of a mistrial. Undeterred by the setback, the wheels of justice spun anew on September 24, 2018, as the trial recommenced in a different county. Hope flickered on the horizon, but once again the resolve of a new jury was tested and found wanting. The echoes of indecision reverberated, culminating in a second mistrial that further deepened the shadows surrounding the case.
History repeats itself in the murder retrial of Jessica Chambers, with the judge once again declaring a mistrial.
Jury was split down the middle, 6 for guilty, 6 not guilty, and we know that's just not how it works. Everybody.
As if by a cruel twist of fate, the saga of Quentin Tellis extended beyond Jessica's tragic fate. The specter of another life lost, that of Ming Chen Xiao, loomed over the narrative. Tellis found himself facing the accusations of yet another heinous crime, as the wheels of justice ground on. The legal landscape shifted, and he was brought to another court to answer for his actions. In a turn of events that seemed almost surreal, Tellis pleaded guilty to using Xiao's debit card after her death, an admission that cast yet another shadow upon his character. Yet, as the pages of this complex story turned, they revealed a surprising twist. The arc of justice, it seemed, could not be contained within a singular narrative.
The man accused of murdering Jessica Chambers in Cortland, Mississippi back in 2014 will not face a trial for a separate murder of a University of Louisiana Monroe student that happened in 2015. Judge Larry Jefferson dismissed the indictment against Quentin Tellis on the basis of information that the state of Mississippi wanted Tellis to serve a 5-year prison sentence for other offenses. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals will decide whether Tellis stands trial.
A dismissal of Tellis's indictment in the Xiao case by Judge Larry Jefferson left observers perplexed. The state of Mississippi's pursuit of justice in the Jessica Chambers case took precedence, leaving questions unanswered and uncertainty lingering in the air. Tellis is currently serving a burglary prison sentence in Mississippi, and according to the Mississippi Department of Corrections website, Tellis is tentatively scheduled to be released from prison on October 16, 2027. Until then, Tellis sits behind bars, the hands of the clock ticking down to an eventual release date. The contours of his future seemed written in chalk, a reality he has given himself by his own actions and the legal system's response to this case. The story of Jessica Chambers' case resonates far beyond the courtroom, serving as a poignant reminder of the intricate interplay between law, language, and human perception. The mistrials unveiled the critical role that clear and unambiguous instructions play in shaping the course of justice. They illuminated the fine line between comprehension and confusion, between unanimous agreement and a deadlock. The mistrials stand as a testament to the complexity of legal proceedings and the ultimate quest for truth and justice in the face of unprecedented challenges. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.